What's up? What's up, people? This is RJ. I'm with Matt and Brad. We have a very special guest, CJ. What's up, CJ?
Hello, everybody.
CJ is coming to us from the northernmost state of the 48 states, except for maybe one other, from Maine. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we're the northeasternmost.
How's it going up there, man? How's it going for you so far?
It's a little blustery outside. I was the lights may go out at any moment, so there's a little bit of danger.
Oh, nice. Let's roll then.
It's a nice broadcast. But, yeah.
So this is our third or fourth one of these, I think. And Matt's quarterbacking the tech. You got all the screens and all the keys, Matt.
There's things all over the place. I mean, it's like when they show the control room for like NFL games and stuff like that. It's like that, but like instead of there being 20 people, there's just me, and I also don't really know what I'm doing. So
pressing buttons.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on YouTube right now, so.
We appreciate people watching. Anyone of you guys who's looking at the YouTube stream, you should tell us when people say things. Of course,
also not as awesome as like the Monday Night Football either. Like,
I would say it's pretty close.
I don't know. I think I'm Fish's Booger McFarland. I think I can live up to that.
Maybe I just miss sports. I miss sports.
You might miss sports. Before we start, CJ, are you drinking anything special today? I know that you have all the best beers.
Yeah, I'm having. Let's see. I don't think it's fish related, although I know the guy is definitely a fish fan. But it's Waves from Good Fire out of Portland.
Cool. Portland?
Double IPA. Yep.
Nice. Matt, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a. I actually have to open it, so sorry for the noise.
Ooh.
I'm
live.
I'm drinking a blueberry Waterloo, which is either new or new to me, and I have to tell you, it's fantastic.
Brad, what about you?
I'm drinking a Firestone Luponic Distortion.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's yeah, they advertise it as like kiwi and some other fruits, and it's not as fruity, so that's nice.
Nice. I got a Vermont beer in New Jersey. They had like 3 Lawsons at Fred's, Matt. 3 different kinds of Lawsons, including Sip of Sunshine. So I'm drinking a session IPA from Lawson's.
That's pretty
awesome. Lawson's, CJ, is Lawson's still cool, or is it like? It's
still cool. They're kind of distributing a little bit all over the Northeast now. I think they do. They've contracted with one of the breweries, maybe 2 roads in Connecticut, to kind of up their production, and I think they're building a bigger brewery in Vermont right now, because he had just like a tiny little place up there originally. So
that explains it. And so, CJ, we're obviously going to talk about Magnaball, which you and Brad and I were there together, and Matt was also there. So we all have our stories. But I guess before we get into that, how are you holding up there? How's it going up in Maine?
Doing all right. It's been, everything's kind of interesting. I've got a almost 7-year-old and a 2-year-old, so we've been doing the homeschooling and while trying to keep the 2-year-old from climbing on every single table that's around. So it's Dad's not always the most patient teacher, and my oldest isn't always the most patient student. So, but it's been really kind of cool to actually get to see him learn and kind of be a part of that.
That's cool. Brad or Matt, have you guys been successful with the like home parenting? I mean, not parenting, homeschooling. I haven't been successful with the home parenting thing, but
yeah,
you guys been
neither
with the schooling thing.
I'm not doing a whole lot of that. I have to give it up to my wife, who is working from home technically, but because she's a scientist, there's not like a ton of actual work that she can do. So she is taking the lead, because my job got incredibly busy when all this started to go down. So I'm like working my ass off 9 to 5 in my office, which is here that you're looking at. I call it an office, but it's just the same place I do this shit. But she's doing a lot of it, and she's doing a really great job, which we've got a lot of like activity workbooks and stuff like that. It's weird because she's a preschooler. She'll be starting kindergarten in the fall, assuming school still exists then. Um, so it's like, okay, well, we're like doing stuff with her, but if she was at school, she'd be spending half the day playing anyway. So she does a lot of playing and creative time, and then we try to get her to practice her reading and writing and math and stuff. And we'll either find out when she gets to kindergarten that we did like an amazing job homeschooling her and she's like way ahead of kids, or that we had no idea what we were doing, and they're gonna be like, she needs to repeat preschool because we're not letting this kid in.
Yeah, I feel that. Brad, what's your situation out there?
Yeah, man. We're Montessori disciples. So the kids are pretty good at self-starting already. They're fourth and first grade, and they're pretty good at getting their work done. And then they know once they get it done, they can do whatever the hell they want. And that's basically how it's been going, you know? So they finish their work, and then they've got to run to the place, and it's fine. Matt and I were talking before we got on how like we're stubbing our toes on more shit than ever, just because, you know, the house is a mess and dishes are piled up, but you know, so it goes. And I actually wouldn't trade it, man. It's not, you know, it's nice to be here all day with the kids and the fam, and you know, and my wife. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine, man. Everything's fine.
Everything's all right.
Everything's fine. Everything's gonna be fine. So, CJ, have you watched the dinner and a movie broadcast so far?
I've watched a couple. Yeah, I've been in and out somewhat. I watched all of the first one. I think the last one I watched was Jam-filled Night. So I caught most of the first set, and then I was kind of in and out and doing stuff. So it's been really nice to have something to look forward to every week, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They just keep like doing the most epic shows, at least of 3.0. Matt, is this like going to continue, or are they going to keep just going to like the most popular / maybe best shows of the of the era?
It seems like it. I mean, if they're sticking to 3.0, which seems to be the trend, at least for now, I mean, like they're picking the right shows, you know. I mean, it's not like they're picking some random shows that nobody likes or anything like that. Like they're definitely in tune with what the good shows are. I think we've talked about this each week. It'd be nice to see them get a little bit further into the archive, but maybe they're saving that for, you know, later on, assuming this goes on for a while. I don't know. I mean, everybody read that report today that says maybe fall of 2021. So in that case, maybe Fish is looking at like, you know, 70 weeks of these or something like that, and taking their time. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about this Magnaball show, and it's a hell of a show for sure.
So are there complaints though? RJ, let me ask, are there complaints about like only 3.0 shows at this point? I know there are on Twitter, but that's what Twitter's for. Like, what about you guys? You guys want to see some 1.0 or?
Eventually, I think I'd like to. I know that, you know, there are definitely, even if it's, you know, showing the Clifford Ball, which I have less of the DVD of, or Todd Phillips. I don't know how much footage they must have from when they shot Bittersweet Motel. But there's going to be a ton of stuff from that '97 era, because I remember them recording all of The Great Went, but I haven't seen anything from it other than the clips that are in Bittersweet Motel, and then that whole fall tour looks like they were at least in and out filming stuff, because there's a lot of footage from that. So you would hope that there's some of that around they can get access to.
Yeah, I don't know. Were they that's amazing if they have video of all those fall shows, or at least some of them. I don't think I've seen any.
I don't know. I don't know if what they have in terms of the Todd Phillips footage. I think maybe it was Kevin Shapiro, I think, said a couple years ago, where somebody said at one point, like, you'd be surprised, like the stuff that made it into Bittersweet Motel and the extras on the DVD is basically like what they shot, because film's expensive. There was somebody saying the other day in a Twitter conversation, and that they were shooting basically every show 97, 98 from the like single cam that they had at the soundboard, which is where like a lot of the 95 stuff came from. And we talked about this. There was a couple of about 15 years ago, they released some videos from like the New Year's Eve run and the island tour and stuff like that. So I think that, that kind of stuff exists. But then if you talk about like the Great Went and all the festivals, they should have the screen footage, like the IMAG screen footage. Just like with the Clifford Ball, that's basically like what they put out was like the stuff that was shown on the screens. So I don't know. Hopefully that comes out at some point too.
I don't think there were screens at the Great Went, unfortunately. I think there were some issues with the weight, and there was some rain beforehand, so they couldn't get them up. But I think I recall them not having screens at the Great Went.
Interesting. Okay. So maybe not.
I think if they don't have footage, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I don't know.
No way to know. I mean, there's no idea, man. CJ, what are your memories of Magnaball?
A lot. There are a lot of them. It was an interesting time. We went. Ended up. That wasn't my first show back. I had just gotten back from London that summer. So I caught the last night of the tour, of like the regular summer tour, second night of Merriweather, to kind of get back into it, and met a bunch of people, which was fairly overwhelming at the pool at the Marriott or Hilton or whatever it is there. And then, but it was just kind of a taste to get excited, because I hadn't been to a festival since Coventry, because I couldn't make it out to Indio, and then we were in England for Super Bowl. So it's pretty excited to sort of rinse away that taste of Coventry with something more, a little bit uplifting and upbeat for a Phish festival.
I remember we hadn't met yet, CJ, in person, and RJ and I were already at the house. RJ, CJ, and I stayed in the same spot with the Vic and Mrs. the Vic. Who else? Some other stragglers. CJ rolled up. I feel like we were there before you, and you rolled up in your parents' minivan.
Yeah.
The gold minivan. The thing was amazing. And he just rolled up like, "Get in, losers." Like, we're on our way.
It was crazy, man. It feels like, still to this day, it feels like Magnaball was like a peak of the 3.0 era. Like, it took a long time to get to that point, and it feels still like that. Matt, do you like? I feel like Magnaball might be the peak of like at least the events that they've done in 3.0, if not the music itself. But does that like ring true for you, or how do you feel about it looking back now?
I think it's definitely a peak. I think the one that you'd have to argue about is Baker's Dozen, which definitely seems like another huge thing, but that was kind of like a spread out thing. Like, in terms of like a singular event, I think you're probably right. That was definitely for me in my show going experience in my life, that was like a peak experience. And I think something that everybody talked about a lot, about being a really, really well executed event, and why I think a lot of people were super, super stoked for Curveball before it got canceled too, because like Superball was really great, Magnaball was amazing, and it was like, what, the third time at this venue, what are they going to have in store?
And do you guys remember that like day set? I mean, I remember it now more because of that set in Mexico that we got to see in the daylight, because that was the last time I'd seen a set like that. But you guys remember going in? I remember going in at like 11 a.m. and it was like, I guess we're just going to stand out here in this field for like the next 16 hours, including the midnight set. That was like, it was a little bit intimidating going into it.
RJ, you and I, let me jump in. We left early. I mean, we left early before everybody, and from the house that we had, a couple miles from the venue, and we parked in the day parking lot, and then we hit the campgrounds, and then went in, and I mean, I felt like we were there before lunch. It was something I'd never done before. I mean, we were there over 12 hours, I think, and that But the weather was perfect. I'll never forget that, like, some high clouds and like shade and the sun coming in and out, and going around to people's campsites. And that was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that like I mentioned to some people, and I saw other people make the same comment, and like people that I was with kind of confirmed this. Like, this wasn't just like a great fish show. I honestly think that like this day was like one of the best days of my life. It's like, for you started to talk about a little bit of it, Brad. Like the weather was just perfect. The whole weekend it was perfect, but that day I just remember like the gorgeous blue skies above us, sitting outside, during the day, not being too hot, waiting for the band to come on. We got there really early. We're up close. And then just like the way everybody's vibe after that set, getting ready for the nighttime and everything like that, it was just like so easygoing and great. And then you had like two more amazing sets of music in the evening, and then the incredible secret set at night. So I mean, like Brad, I think you just said 12 hours. Like, yeah, I mean, basically like 12 to 14 hours of just like an amazing fish experience.
CJ, do you remember the first set? Like any highlights from the first set? Because I remember it being like fine and fun, but maybe I don't know. Were there highlights for you in that set?
Yeah, there were a few. I mean, the first day was pretty overwhelming because I met the few people I did meet at Merriweather. Like it was tenfold that, meeting people that I had known online for like 3 years, and just running into everybody and forgetting people's names 2 seconds later and all that kind of stuff. And it was just sort of getting back into the groove of going to a festival. It would have been 15 years, or no, about 10 plus years anyway. And so the second day with that afternoon set was just a really nice way to ease into the day. I thought, like, I take Divided Sky at every show I go to. Like, even if I hit 8 in a row, I could deal with the Divided Sky at every show. So it was a nice way to open the show. It was a slowed down kind of version, which I know they happen to do a little bit more now, but I think that was more of a purposeful thing to kind of ease everybody in. Then Trey just couldn't keep up with it because he was pretty on his game in 15, in terms of composed sections and stuff. So it felt like a welcoming in, and then the roar during the quiet section with just a whole racetrack full of people. Really, I think just set the tone for the whole day that it was going to be something special.
Yeah, I remember the antelope, the set closing. Was it set closing?
Yeah, I think they did
that was
Undermine into Antelope.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And I remember like there being like wandering the entire grounds during that set, just because it was light and you could kind of see your way around and go explore, and not miss any music at all. It was pretty incredible. It felt like a long set, but I was just like, it's weird to be out of there in the middle of the day and just knowing that there's 2 more sets at night. Like you're sort of like just like taking it all in and just trying to anticipate what was next, which I don't know if I could have based on what happened. But Matt, do you have highlights of the first set?
It was very first setty, but like I don't mind that too much, especially like when you have the nice daytime environment. I think the same kind of thing happened with Mexico. Like I remember like we were having such a blast that daytime set in Mexico, and you went in the ocean and we did all that kind of stuff. And then like our friends that were up close on the rail came back, and they had been up front with like super 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 fans the whole time, and they were like, oh my god, that was so awful, like they just played a bunch of lousy songs and it was so boring. And we were like, come on, you don't enjoy like the sunshine and the ocean and the sand between your toes and all that kind of stuff. I think it's the same thing for this. Like if you couldn't stand there and look around at the the mountains around you and the blue sky above you, and really just soak in the amazing experience of seeing this great music during the day. We just, I suppose, have different approaches to seeing the band, but I do remember, like, I'm looking at the set list now, and I'm remembering that they played Scabbard, that Trey tune, on this tour a handful of times, including this set, which I think is a great song. I wish they'd play more from that album, the Architect album. and Tube. I think this was like Super Bowl where they had like a bunch of blow up balls that came out during Tube, maybe floating around in the air. And then yeah, the Undermine into Antelope closer. But it was just more of just a kind of like an esoteric experience of being out there, enjoying it. I doubt we'll see this tomorrow. I'm sure that they're not gonna like make us wait for hours and hours before they start the second set. But I remember watching the webcast when I got back from the festival, and that day's webcast, they actually just kept a camera going the whole time from the stage pointed out to the crowd. So if you wanted to, you could like just watch the crowd. Like I think it was like 5 hours of the crowd just like hanging out, people leaving, people coming and going, and just like the sun starting to set a little bit, and get a little bit of a fish vibe. So I don't know, maybe that would be like a cool pre-show or something tomorrow where we can just all sort of feel like we're hanging out in the crowd.
There were a ton of really cool. I think, Matt, you mentioned that people were really excited for Curveball, but I think one of the reasons is how well it was put together at Magnaball. The food, the beers, the places to hang out, right? And that made that 5 hour gap or whatever not terrible. Right. And so I don't really recall it being that long. I remember, talking to a lot of people. I remember some, hanging out in the back by the Ferris wheel, all that kind of stuff. It's all coming back, and it was really great. I also remember the Tube was like 4 minutes long, and I was really pissed.
It was definitely it was peak when will Tube jam again time when that was played. Yeah. That Antelope though, I listened to it again today and I forgot that's got to be one of the best of 3.0. It actually takes some interesting turns during the jam, and really like it kind of goes a little sideways for a bit there in the middle, but it comes back to like the trilling peak, and then wasn't quite wasn't quite the closer that the chin was the night before, but it was pretty good to end in that first set.
Yeah, like you said earlier, CJ, I mean, obviously one of the main themes of 2015 summer is like post Fare Thee Well, right? Trey was just like, he was on it. And we've talked before about how like Bowie and Antelope don't get what we would probably consider like the proper treatment that often. So it's cool to see when that does happen in this era, That was definitely one of them. I remember the track, Brad, I don't know if we went back there during Antelope or what, but I just remember like the track, like tons of dust and just kind of like spinning around. I think it was several hours though, but between that and the next set, was it 5 hours maybe? It was like 3 to 8 maybe. I just remember wandering around for a long time.
Was there a big Twitter meetup in between the first and second set, I think?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, it's definitely like
the Ferris wheel, right?
Occupied our time. Yeah, it wasn't just like stand around and there's nothing to do, and we like ate a bunch and drank a bunch, and then CJ, we ended up next to each other. We all went up sort of right behind the soundboard for set 2. I guess set 2 and 3 maybe, although maybe we moved for set 3. But I remember being there with you for set 2. What was that going into that set like?
Well, so I think the last time I had taken LSD was Big Cypress. And so I was like, I'm at a fish festival. It's time to do it again. I had mushrooms now and again since then, but it was time to get back on it. And there's no better place to do it. So I took a couple of hits in between the set break, and set 2 I was on my way up. I think I pretty much was at the top of my game during the Tweezer Caspian. But in the meantime, kind of wandered around. I got hungry. There was food like right in the middle of the field. I was like, I got to get a cheeseburger. And so I got a cheeseburger, and it was the best goddamn thing I've ever eaten in my life. I know people don't like to eat when they're on LSD sometimes, but cheeseburgers on acid, it was, I believe I came up and professed my love of cheeseburgers to you, like at the end of that set.
Yeah, it was one of my enduring memories of Magnaball is you being like looking over to me and saying like, have you ever eaten a cheeseburger on acid? like with just this look of just pure delight.
amazement.
And I was like, I don't think so, but that is awesome. It's interesting. Like, I mean, obviously doing anything before that second set, like, you're in for, at that point, what, 8 until 3 a.m. Like, you're in for
Yeah.
7 hours of fish. Like, you knew what you were getting into, but you probably didn't know like that. I mean, maybe we all expected that set was just going to be incredible because it was Saturday night at Magnaball and whatever, but it kind of surpassed my expectations. And I don't know if you guys felt that way, but it was sort of like, I didn't really it was just like, I don't know, I'm sure it'll be good, but I didn't know that it would be like one of the best sets ever. It was fucking crazy. That set was insane.
I love the opener. I thought the Wolfman's is, average great, as Jonathan would say. We miss him. But I really like the way it took off in the first set, because you've been waiting. I mean, it's almost like a new show at that point. You've kind of reset and all that. And I thought the Wolfman's was incredible. And every song in that second set, maybe the Haley's could have been longer. It was only 6 some minutes long. But I thought it was incredible. An incredible second set of 3. Obviously, if it were a first set, it would be, all timer.
Yeah, especially like the 8 o'clock set being just one of the best sets ever. Matt, what's your enduring memory of the second set? You missed CJ's cheeseburger on it. You can imagine how that went, and imagine you were.
You went away from there for a second, but second set, I mean, it's all about the tweezer.
Second set.
Tweezer Caspian. I mean, it's all about that, which is probably, it's like one of the greatest jams of 3.0. It's one of the greatest jams of a really, really great tour, summer 2015. And I just remember, I mean, first off, we need to address the elephant that's not necessarily in the room, but should be, which is that it's actually Tweezer into Caspian back into Tweezer.
Yes, I was going to ask you that.
Yes, 1000%. It's that. But what I remember is like the other thing. This was such a good tour. The whole summer 2015 tour was amazing, and like one of the things that stuck out was that like this. I felt like this was the year that Gary Brown, his sound mix, really, really finally came together for the band, and they were just sounding amazing. And I'll never forget during the peak of that Tweezer, the ground was literally shaking. I mean, this huge field, and like Mike is dropping these bass bombs that are shaking the entire ground, because it was just like the bass was so rich. And I just remember like it was just like you talk about like a peak moment and a peak jam. It's like the ground is shaking, everybody has their arms in the air, jumping up and down, and like the band is just like raging. Yeah, it was that moment is just like burnt into my brain and something I'll always remember for sure.
And CJ, one of the reasons I wanted you to be the guest is that like you were sort of talking about how you were in London and we got to hang out in London earlier that summer, and then you came back and then you were like getting back on fish tour, and then you go away for a 3-day weekend to go to this festival. Do you remember like that night? Just like, did you feel like you like hit the lottery fish wise, or afterwards?
I was pretty excited, and being in the state I was just enjoying everything. I do love the Tweezer Caspian. I'm going to argue a little bit. I don't know if it necessarily goes back into Tweezer. They do hit the riff. I just think it's more, it's one of those ones where, it's one of those jams where it's like they are on a boat. You start off on one island. The island is Tweezer. You go into the sea of jam. Along comes another island. It's Prince Caspian. You stop there for a minute, and then you jump back off into that same kind of jam that you were in before. And it's kind of like the 21797 Down with the Z's Carini, where it's just like this big jam, boom, then they flop the debut of Carini in the middle, and then they just go out into outer space again right away, or out into the sea. I think that's maybe still my favorite bit of 3.0, my favorite jam altogether. And it wasn't necessarily at the time, like, I just thought it was fantastic, but going back and listening to it, and it's really, it stands up. It's why you go to fish.
Cool. So we're gonna kick CJ off the stream now for not agreeing about Tweezer. It's been nice talking to you.
Have a good one,
Unplugged.
guys. Yeah.
So, Matt, one of the things I remember about summer 2015 is that all the jams were like pretty different, like different thematically. You know, like there were some summers where like you could see a pattern developing over the course of a tour, and it was just something that they like Trey or the band got comfortable with. But it seemed like, I mean, there's so many amazing pieces of improv from the summer, and they all seem pretty different. I don't know if you guys think that like that Tweezer is completely different from other stuff we heard that summer, but compared to like the Atlanta Tweezer from, you know, a month before, the Kill Devil Falls from that Atlanta, there's just like, there's so much. I feel like I can't put any of these jams into a category from summer 2015. I don't know, Matt, if that rings true with you or not, but I feel like they're all so different.
I think so, and I think that's why it's one of my favorites tours that has happened in 3.0, because there's some other tours where like fall of 2018, for example, it's a really good example. Like people love that tour and I like it a lot, but I feel like a lot of the big jams on that tour kind of just go to the same place. Whereas I think you're absolutely right. In summer 2015, like the theme for me is killer Trey playing. He was so hot coming off of the Fairly Well shows. And they had new material to play too, right? That's when like Blaze On and No Men debuted and Shade and some other stuff. And so I think you're absolutely right. I would listen to those, go back to a lot of those shows because like the jams are so distinct. Like if you look at a show like right before this, the second night at the Man, was incredible. And you've got like the second set, which was like a 4 or 5 song second set, and every single song went deep and a completely unique and amazing way. So I think you're absolutely right about that.
And Brad, you flew out from the West Coast for Magnaball. Did you see West Coast shows also?
Yes, I don't remember. I didn't do my homework. I totally, and I don't remember.
LA probably,
so,
right?
Yeah, I saw LA. I think I don't think I went up to San Francisco in 15. But to add to everything, it's all fairly well. I mean, there's no doubt about it that you can hear us playing on it and it coming through and just practice generally. It was an incredible lead to what turned out to be an incredible peak, and we'd like to think that we could predict it, but obviously we didn't. Yeah, I don't know.
And it's wild. I kind of forget. I was sort of what you were saying earlier, Brad. I don't know if you were saying this, but I felt when you were talking earlier that like I kind of forget about the third set. Not like that it existed, but like the second set is so perfect. And the third set's really good too. I remember having a blast during the third set, but I don't go back to that set that often. CJ, are you like a 2 and 3 person, or is 2 like more singled out?
I actually think kind of overall 3 might be the better set. Just kind of flow wise. Before we get to 3 though, I just want to shout out the 46 Days, which is maybe the most underrated thing from the whole weekend. That kind of gets lost with the Tweezer Caspian that comes a couple songs later. But that like it's pretty evil at the beginning, and then it goes into this really blissy, what I call it, rich oral stew, with a lot of like Page on electric piano. That's just really beautiful, and kind of maybe gives one of the best segues into Numberline, which can be a little bit jarring to segue into sometimes, but really worked out well with the pairing of those.
It's interesting that the week before, or I guess a couple of days before, the first night of Merriweather, they had this amazing 46 Days jam into Bug, and it was just the perfect transition. And it's interesting that the 46 Days was like kind of this interesting jam vehicle during that period of time. I mean, sometimes I guess it's kind of goes on and off, but that's a good point. I like kind of, yeah, it's all about the tweezer. But sorry, thanks for pointing that out.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Well, It's funny, RJ, you mentioned the 46 days in the bug the week before, and then we get the wonderful dirt. You know what I mean? Remember, I'll never forget that. It's not the 22nd of August, but man,
Yeah.
going back to this really brings me back to 15. I think we listen to any of these shows will it's impressive. It's really good music.
Yeah, a lot of beautiful moments. So CJ, the third set to you that might be better. I mean, there's some amazing moments in that third set.
It doesn't quite hit the highs of the Caesar Caspian, but it's just run down it quick. It's Meat Stick, Blaze On, and Opossum, Cities, Light, 555, Waiting, and Walls. And the whole, especially the Blaze On through 555. So one thing, it doesn't all segue smoothly, but it really flows together. The Blaze On is great. That was a song that since the debut I was really excited to hear. It was great to hear, and thought that was really good. Really kind of dark and trippy at the end. He had like Trey had this kind of had the Mootron going, I think, a bit in the Blaze On as well, and had these kind of gnarly licks that was happening. And he sort of, I guess he must have sampled them, because you hear them come back sort of at the end of the jam, and they come back in the intro of the Possum, and then even a little bit further into the Possum. So it's kind of continuing some themes from earlier on into it. And then the Possum is just kind of some straight up head rock. And really kind of snapped you back in. And then maybe my kind of highlight of the whole weekend, the Cities comes next, and Cities is my favorite cover they do. I absolutely love it. That's was my handle originally, was Think of London, and they started playing it, and I can't remember what Todd Druden's handle is, but he was kind of hanging out with all of us, and in the middle of them playing it, I turned to him and I was like, holy shit, they're playing a Mind Left Body Jam, and which is just something you don't ever expect Fish to play, except they've kind of hinted at it, I think, in the Tweezer Light from Randall's in 14, but this was actually playing it. I think I don't think it says it on here, but if you look on like the Fishnet, they listed it as its own kind of thing, and Tears Cities, and then Mind Left Body Jam. I kind of tweeted something out about it. It was exactly perfect. Everything was all right in the world. I couldn't have been happier at the time, and things could have been better.
That third set is pretty nuts. I remember it being good. I didn't have a whole lot of detail on it in my mind until just looking at it to the set list today. But I remember that third set being good, and then like, not that we're talking about it, but the next day, the third set, the third night was another one that was like seriously underrated. That was the one with the What's the Use that got like eerily quiet, which was amazing. Just kind of like the culmination of that, the vibe at that festival. Just how amazingly quiet everybody was able to get.
I like the Meat Stick to open the third set. Kind of, it's kind of silly and playful, you know what I mean? But then thereafter, they get serious for a bit, as CJ was mentioning, and it's set the Meat Stick opener. I know some people are, not huge Meat Stick fans, but like, it was a nice start to what turned out to be a really incredible long, fun set, and we haven't gotten there yet, but the encore and then the vibe into the secret set, all of those things need to be talked about as well.
Well, just want to go to it quick too. The silly and odd is the best way to start a festival third set. Like if you look at the really good ones from the 90s, like the third set, the first night of the Went, the Makasupa in the 2001 from the Clifford Ball that first night, So it's Buffalo Bill, the second night of the Went, like all the third sets. It needs a little fun, then a little weirdness, then some jams, and I wish they'd stretch music out longer, but that was kind of a perfect place for it to be.
So let's talk about one thing as we headed into the secret set. Was this the most obvious, like, this is what they're gonna do for the secret set of any festival at all? Because I remember everybody just kind of walking into the venue and going like, well, that huge freaking like video screen is probably gonna have something to do with it.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. And I remember Brad. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, just to cut that off, like, I remember at Super Bowl, for example, like in other festivals, like, but Super Bowl was a really good example where like nobody knew what was gonna happen, that it was gonna be like in the storage facility, but and there was like a big giant disco ball, and we were team disco ball, so we were like, that's gonna play a part of it, and we went there, and then there's other people that were like, no, there's this like speaker thing over here, and I bet it's gonna be there, but like it felt like for the secret set at Magnaball, the entire crowd just like as soon as Tweezer Reprise ended, just like walked straight over to the drive-in and like assumed their new position.
Yeah, it wasn't far away either. So it was like people just headed directly, right?
Right.
But Brad, I remember being completely exhausted and like, how are we going to do this? Like, how are we going to make it?
I was telling Matt before we got on.
It was cool to see a secret. I mean,
I'm telling. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just can't believe that we were so tired. I mean, it was 1 a.m. or whatever, and we didn't have the benefit of anything to keep us going artificially, but it was like, man, we got to stay awake for this. And we did, but like barely. Like it was like mostly like wook zombies, you know, wandering around. And then like Brad and I were just trying to like navigate the crowd and not get ourselves killed.
I remember I was telling Matt before we got on, the third set is like kind of blurrish. You know what I mean? There were some good highlights, but you know, I definitely remember eating and like getting more beer and then, you know, searching for other things. And then once the encore ended, you're used to kind of coming down from that, but you know, you're not sure when they're going to come on again. We kind of knew where they were going to play, but we didn't know when. I just kind of remember like walking in circles for a bit.
I know. I ended up spending that separating after the end of the show and before the secret started, because we just moved back. I didn't have like a regular phone yet because I didn't have credit for the last 5 years in the United States. So we bought flip phones, and so I spent the majority of my time trying to craft a text message to my wife on LSD on a flip phone that made me try to sound as normal as I absolutely could be. Like, everything's fine, babe. I love you. Yay. And that took a good 40 minutes, I think.
with the number with like 3 letters per number.
Like, E. Oh, no, I went too far. Yeah. It took a while.
That's amazing.
I remember waking up Sunday morning with an enormous bruise on my shin. And I was like, dude, what? Like, I don't, you know, had no recollection until the morning. And Sunday, I'm like, shit, we still gotta go. I still got more music to go see. So I like rubbed some dirt on it, I think.
What do you guys think about the actual music of that set as compared to other secret sets?
I mean, so I will say that my only other festival before this was Coventry also, where the secret set was like, you get to go back to your campsite and survive for a night. So like, you know, compared to that, this was pretty dope. It was really, I mean, it was really cool to see. I thought it was really amazing. Like I said, my recollection is mostly like dark woods with wook zombies and me and Brad kind of trying to navigate the wook zombies, but it was trippy and awesome.
I don't know if the statute of limitations is run yet, but you drove home that night.
Okay. I remember, like, I feel like
Matt, what?
I felt like the music like especially compared to the last several secret sets before this, so like the storage jam and the tower jam and stuff like that, it was a little bit less abstract, a little bit more kind of like musical. Um, and I guess I remember like I think it had to do with like the fact that they had these different videos put together, that there was distinct like segments of the whole jam where there was like they were kind of striving for like melodies and almost like creating little songs on the fly. Um, and there was also like, do you remember there was like sound effects going on as
Yeah.
well? And they had some sort of like, I still to this day, I don't know what it was. There was some sort of like 3D processing on the sound because like all of these sound effects sounded like they were coming from like all over the place, like in the sky and like behind you and stuff like that. And I like after the set, I walked around for a while looking for like additional speakers that I couldn't find. I swore that they had like speakers hidden all around us, like playing sound effects and stuff like that. And I couldn't find them. And somebody's told me like the next day, I was asking around about it and they're like, oh yeah, there's like this 3D processing that they did on the sound for the sound effects. I don't know. Whatever it was amazing and it complemented the video like so well.
At some point, some security guard was like, "Excuse me, sir, you're gonna have to leave now." You're like, "I'm looking for the secret speakers, man."
I was like, they're here, man. Did you not hear that butterfly that was flying over my head? Like it was there. Okay.
You dig over there. I'm gonna dig here. We're gonna find
right
it.
there, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
CJ, what's your like enduring memory of Magnaball? And are you gonna watch the dinner and a movie tomorrow night?
I will watch the dinner and the movie tomorrow night. I may jump in a little bit towards the end of the first set, just getting kids down and stuff. But I love the secret sets. I'd seen, I think I missed the Great Went Disco set. I fell asleep and didn't realize it was going on, and then missed the flatbed jam when that came by. But I've caught the rest, and I was, I was kind of, after the Fare Thee Well, I was kind of hopeful that Fish would introduce at least one or two Grateful Dead songs to kind of break out just for the summer. I still think that Golden Road would be perfect after watching the performance of that for them to do. But the kind of the dream was, I joked about it, and a bunch of us joked about like, what if they came out and played Dark Star for the secret set or something? And in a lot of ways, that's kind of essentially what they did. I mean, it was just, they came out, they played a freeform deep space, no tethers kind of freak out. And I remember it being, I don't know if it was just because I was much closer there than the stage, but it was super loud at points. And the effects, I wish they would bring some of those effects back in the middle of jams. Like there was, I don't know if it was Paige had them, but there was some kind of like trickling water effect in the middle of jam right at the beginning of when it first picks up, that just like kind of still sends shivers down my spine whenever like it comes up on the headphones kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's the one setless mask I got was
Oh, nice.
Was for the drive-in jam.
And that trickling water sound that you're talking about, that's like exactly what I remember. That was like burnt into my, it just sounded like it was coming from everywhere. We'll do a tiny bit of audience interaction here with the chat room. Illinois Enema Bandit, thanks for joining again this week. That's a regular for us. Said quadraphonic sound, bro. I think you're thinking about Super Bowl, where they had the quadraphonic sound system set up for the secret set. And they were playing sound effects all weekend through that, like things driving around the track and like people making weird announcements and stuff like that. I'm telling you, dude, I never found those speakers at Magnaball. That was part of my objective for Curveball to find.
I love that all of us remember like different effects from the drive-in set. We're like, yeah, man, and then this happened, and there was a go. Okay.
Did any of you guys make it the next night to the drive-in for the dance party?
Yeah,
that was also insane.
That was great. And they had that side kind of disco area too that was separate from it. Right. It was going for a while before the DJ set kicked off. I just remember.
I remember the disco party being intense.
There was a tent disco party, but then the last night after the encore, they shut off fireworks and then they started up the drive-in set, and it was just like a DJ set. I don't know. I think it was like, I don't think it was somebody DJing live. I think it was like something they had created in advance, but it was like something like 2 hours of like amazing stuff that I'm sure the bunny DJs put
Loud too, right?
together.
Yeah.
Super loud. And there was just like,
Yeah.
I remember I was there until like maybe 2 a.m, and it was just like still like thousands of people just like dancing
Mhm.
out in the field in front of the drive-in. It was amazing.
I
You late night
remember
kids. It's a lot of that's not a lot of late nights, CJ.
was a lot of like nights, and I was beat too. I just remember I sat over on the side, watched people's jackets while they were sitting. I was up against like a barricade kind of thing, and just had my eyes closed and was just kind of rocking with the music. But my dogs were barking after 3 days of walking around but that I think I have. You can find it, the late night set, the DJ set online in places. It's really good to re-listen to because they have, I think at the very end there's like a slowed down version of Waste where it's just like not half speed but just like maybe it's 75% speed.
Yeah, they had like
And then
remixed it. It sounded really trippy, like all sorts
yeah,
of effects and stuff like that. Yeah.
Finally, like some more personal detail, but one of the reasons you may have been tired, CJ, is that every morning that I woke up in the house, there was a fucking movie playing, and you were like sleeping, sitting up on the couch. Like maybe you should lay in a
Totally
bed,
true.
dude.
there might have been things keeping me awake for a while. I think we watched Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 like 8 times over that weekend, just because it was the DVD that was in the TV, and we just had to keep going the whole time.
I do remember coming down in that exact scenario. It's amazing. Good memory, Brad.
Also, Wook's on the floor, a baby's mouth. Remember, Twitter past was like like wrapped in blankets in like the dining room.
Never know. You never know where you'd run into any of those guys. All right, CJ, thank you for taking your Monday evening, spending it with us. It was really fun to hang out with you there, and I hope maybe we'll go to another fish show eventually, like in another 5 years.
Someday, maybe when they do like a 4-night holiday run at the Cumberland County Civic Center.
Yeah, that would be
maybe. Yeah,
that would be pretty sweet.
Any day
Pretty
now.
sweet. Thanks for joining us, man. It was good to catch up.
Thank you guys. This was fun. Thanks for inviting me on.
Great to see you, man.
Great to see you.
We'll see
Let's
you
talk to
all.
you, Matt.
And Matt, Brad, we'll see everybody next Monday. We're going to keep it going. So thank you guys for tuning in, and keep telling us what you think we should be doing, because we'll probably do the opposite. But we want to hear anyway. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks, CJ, for joining us. See y'all later.
Cheers.
Everybody.